The Grand Council chamber fell silent when High Archivist stepped forward. His 4 arms trembled as he held the ancient tablet. He had spent 40 years searching for this proof. 40 years of being called a fool. Today, he would show them the truth. "Honored members of the Conquered," he began, his voice shaking. "I bring evidence that the Terrans were real." Laughter filled the chamber. It came from all directions. The insect-like clicked their mandibles in amusement. The tall, blue-skinned shook their heads. Even the usually serious allowed themselves small smiles. High Chancellor raised one of his 6 eyes. "Archivist, we have heard this nonsense before. Humans are stories, nothing more. Tales we tell our children to make them behave." "But the artifacts started." "Were made by some forgotten species," interrupted. "Not by magical beings from a death world who could run for days without stopping. Not by creatures who hunted animals 10 times their size for fun." He leaned forward. "Go back to your dusty archives, old fool. The Council has real matters to discuss." Wanted to argue. He wanted to show them the steel blade he had found. He wanted to explain the strange device called a wristwatch that still worked after 12,000 years. But the guards were already moving toward him. He lowered his head and walked out of the chamber. The laughter followed him into the hallway. 3 levels below the council chamber, in a small communications room, a young officer named stared at her screen. She was, with silver skin and large dark eyes that could see in almost complete darkness. Her job was simple and boring. She monitored signals from the edge of conquered space. Nothing ever happened there. But tonight, something was different. A signal pulsed on her screen. It came from a region that every map marked with the same warning, the Forbidden Dark. Ships did not go there. Probes sent to that region never returned. It was empty space, the elders said, dead space. There was nothing there worth finding. Yet something was sending a signal. Adjusted her equipment. The signal was weak but steady. It repeated in a pattern she did not recognize. She ran it through every translation program the Conquered possessed. None of them worked. "Supervisor," she called out, "I have found something strange." Her supervisor, a heavy named, walked over slowly. He looked at her screen and snorted. "Equipment error. Reset your system." "I already did, 3 times. The signal is real." "Then it is space noise, random energy from a dying star." He turned away. "Stop wasting my time, young one. I have reports to file." Watched him leave. She knew she should delete the signal and forget about it. That was what a good officer would do. But something about the pattern called to her. It was too regular to be random, too purposeful to be natural. She the signal to her personal device. She would study it later in her quarters, where no one would call her foolish. That night could not sleep. She lay in her small bed and listened to the signal through her earpiece. The pattern repeated every 47 seconds, always the same, always perfect. She tried to imagine what kind of being would send such a message into the void, knowing it might never be received. Her mind wandered to the old stories. Every species in the Conquered had them. Tales of the Terrans. The beings who came from a planet so dangerous that simply surviving there made them nearly unstoppable. They could heal from wounds that would kill any other species. They could function without sleep for days. They formed bonds with predator animals and rode them into battle. The story said they had once ruled a vast empire. They had ships that could crack planets, weapons that could burn stars. But then, 12,000 years ago, they vanished. No one knew why. Some said they destroyed themselves in a great war. Others said they ascended to a higher form of existence. Most believed they had simply never existed at all. Had always thought the stories were just stories. But now, lying in the dark, she wondered. The next morning, she visited the Museum of Unknown Origins. It was a small building on the edge of the capital city. Few people came here. The artifacts inside were considered curiosities, nothing more. Objects found on dead worlds, made by species no one remembered. walked through the quiet halls until she found what she was looking for. A display case held several items labeled Origin Unknown, age estimated 12,000 plus years. She looked at the steel blade first. It was simple but beautiful. The metal had not rusted despite its age. The handle was wrapped in some kind of animal skin. Beside it lay a small device with a round face and two hands that moved in a circle. A wristwatch. She had read about these. Humans had worn them to track the passage of time, even though time-tracking devices could be implanted directly into the brain. Why would anyone choose to wear their clock on their arm? It seemed inefficient, primitive, and yet found herself charmed by the idea. There was something almost romantic about it. In the corner of the case, she noticed something she had never seen before. A small rectangle made of paper and leather. The label said Book, Contents Unknown, Language Unidentified. Paper, humans had written on processed plant matter. They had made physical objects to store their knowledge instead of using digital systems. It was so strange, so wonderfully strange. Spent hours in the museum. She photographed everything. She read every information panel, and when she finally left, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hoping. That night she made a breakthrough. She fed the signal into the oldest archive system she could access, a machine so ancient that most people had forgotten it existed. The system hummed and clicked for nearly an hour. Then, finally, it produced a result. Language identified, the system announced. Terran Standard English. Confidence level 94.7%. Felt her heart stop, both of them. Translate, she whispered. The system processed for another few minutes. Then words appeared on her screen. Simple words, desperate words. Words that had been traveling through space for thousands of years, waiting for someone to hear them. Do not forget us. Read the message again and again. She thought about the council and their laughter. She thought about her supervisor and his dismissal. She thought about 12,000 years of silence and a species that everyone believed was just a legend. Somewhere out there in the forbidden dark, someone had sent this message. Someone wanted to be remembered. Someone was waiting. And a junior communications officer with no power and no importance was the only one who knew. She saved the translation to her device. She made 3 backup copies, and she began to plan. She did not know what she would do with this information. She did not know who she could trust, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The humans were real, and someday, somehow, she would prove it. Outside her window, the stars burned cold and distant. But one small region of sky, the region marked on every map as forbidden, seemed to pulse with hidden light, waiting, watching. The old story said humans never truly died. They just waited for the right moment to return. Wondered if that moment was coming soon. 3 months had passed since discovered the signal. 3 months of asking questions. 3 months of being ignored. And now, 3 months later, she stood on a frozen mining colony at the edge of known space, wondering where her life had gone wrong. Volar was a punishment. Everyone knew it. When young officers asked too many questions about forbidden topics, they were sent to places like this. Cold worlds, empty worlds, worlds where nothing ever happened and careers went to die. Pulled her thermal coat and watched the miners walk past. They were mostly a hardy species with thick skin and small eyes. They did not talk much. They worked, they ate, they slept. That was life on Volar. She had tried to continue her research here, but the communication equipment was old and weak. She could barely contact the inner worlds, let alone scan the forbidden dark. Her discovery was slowly dying, and there was nothing she could do about it. Then the sky caught fire. It happened without warning. One moment the pale sun was setting behind the mountains. The next moment bright streaks of light cut through the clouds. Ships, dozens of them, hundreds. They screamed down through the atmosphere like falling stars. Knew those ship designs. Every conquered citizen did. the Wraith hegemony, an empire of conquest that existed outside conquered law. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who resisted, and now they had come to Volar. Alarms screamed across the colony. People ran in every direction. Saw a mother grab her children and sprint toward the underground shelters. She saw miners drop their tools and flee. She saw fear on every face. The colony's defense system activated. 2 small guns rose from the ground and began firing at the descending ships. It was like throwing stones at a thunderstorm. The Wraith ships did not even slow down. "All citizens to the deep shelters," a voice announced over the speakers. "This is not a drill. All citizens to the deep shelters immediately." Ran. She followed the crowd down into the tunnels beneath the colony. The tunnels had been dug by miners years ago. They went deep into the planet's crust, far below the frozen surface. If anywhere was safe, it would be down there. The ground shook as bombs fell above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Children cried. Adults prayed to gods that had never heard of. She kept moving deeper and deeper until she could no longer hear the explosions. The group finally stopped in a large cavern. About 200 survivors huddled together in the darkness. Emergency lights cast weak yellow shadows on the walls, counted the faces around her. Miners, families, a few soldiers with empty weapons, no one who could save them. "Conquered fleet is 6 weeks away," one of the soldiers said quietly. "We sent a distress call, but—" He did not need to finish. 6 weeks. The Wraith would find them long before then. This cavern would become their tomb. Leaned against the wall and tried to think. There had to be something they could do, some way to survive. She looked around the cavern, searching for anything useful. That was when she noticed the crack in the wall. It was small, barely visible in the dim light, but air was flowing through it. Cold air, fresh air, air that should not exist this deep underground. "There is something behind this wall," she said. No one listened. They were too busy being afraid. So found a mining tool and began to dig. She worked for hours, widening the crack inch by inch. Her arms burned, her hands bled, but she kept going. Finally, the wall gave way. Beyond it lay a tunnel that no one had made. The walls were smooth and metallic. Strange lights glowed along the ceiling, still working after who knew how many years. "What is this place?" a miner asked. Did not answer. She walked forward, her heart's pounding. The tunnel led to a massive door covered in symbols she did not recognize. No, that was wrong. She did recognize them. She had seen them in the museum, on the artifacts, on the items labeled Origin Unknown. Human symbols. She touched the door. It scanned her hand, then her face, then something deep inside her brain. A moment later it opened. The room beyond was huge. Machines lined the walls, dark and silent. Weapons hung in cases, still gleaming after thousands of years. And in the center of the room stood a pedestal with a single glowing crystal. Approached the crystal. As she got close, it activated. Light poured from it and formed a shape in the air. A figure. A being she had only seen in ancient drawings. A human. He was tall, with brown skin and tired eyes. He wore armor that looked both ancient and advanced. Blood stained his face. He spoke in a language that should not have understood, but somehow she did. The crystal was translating. "If you are seeing this," the human said, "then we failed. The hollow came and we could not stop them. We had to run. We had to hide, but we did not abandon you." The hologram flickered. The human coughed blood. "We have gone dark, hidden ourselves beyond the rim, but we left these bunkers throughout the galaxy. Shelters, caches, beacons. If you are in danger, if you need us, activate the beacon. We will come." He paused. His eyes seemed to look directly at. "We will always come." The hologram faded, stood frozen. 12,000 years. This message had waited for 12,000 years, and now she was the one who had found it. She looked at the pedestal. A small button glowed beneath where the crystal sat. The beacon. She could activate it. She could call them. But what if it did not work? What if the humans were truly gone and this was just the ghost of a dead species? Above her the ground shook again. The Wraith were digging. They would find the survivors soon. There was no other choice. Press the button. Nothing happened. The room stayed silent. The machine stayed dark. She felt tears forming in her eyes. It had been foolish to hope, foolish to believe in legends. Then far above the planet, something changed. The Wraith Admiral stood on his command ship and watched his troops descend toward the colony. This would be an easy conquest. No resistance. No conquered fleet for weeks. He was already planning how he would divide the slaves among his officers. His sensor officer made a strange sound. "Admiral," the officer said, voice shaking. "Ships coming out of hyperspace." "Conquered reinforcements?" the admiral asked. "Impossible, they are too far away." "Not conquered, sir. Unknown design, unknown signatures." The officer paused. "Hundreds of them, no thousands." The admiral looked at his display screen. His blood went cold. Ships were appearing all around his fleet. Massive ships. Ships bigger than anything the Conquered had ever built. They moved with impossible speed, surrounding the Wraith formation in seconds. And they kept coming. More and more, pouring out of hyperspace like water from a broken dam. "Identify them," the admiral ordered. "Now." His communication system crackled. A voice came through, calm, cold, speaking a language his translator could barely process. "Wraith vessels. This world is under the protection of the Terran remnant. You have 60 seconds to withdraw. This is your only warning." The admiral stared at his screen. Terran, that was the old word, the legend word, the word for a species that did not exist. "Terrans are myths," he whispered. 50 seconds, the voice replied. The admiral looked at the ship surrounding him. He looked at his own fleet, suddenly so small. He made his decision. "All ships attack, destroy these." He never finished the sentence. Below in the bunker felt the ground shake one final time. Then everything went quiet. She looked up at the ceiling, wondering what was happening above her. The legends had answered. The humans had come. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Did not see it happen, she only felt it, vibrations through the ground, distant thunder from beyond the sky, and then silence, complete and total silence. The survivors waited in the bunker for hours, afraid to move. Some thought the Wraith had won and were searching for them. Others thought the planet itself was dying. No one dared to hope that they had been saved. Then the door opened. Light poured into the bunker. Not the cold light of Volder's sun, but warm light, golden light. A figure stepped through the doorway. It was shaped like the hologram, but alive. Real. A human being made of flesh and blood, wearing armor that hummed with quiet power. "It is safe now," the human said. Her voice was gentle but strong. "The enemy is gone. We have come to help you." No one moved. 200 survivors stared at the impossible creature before them. This was a legend, a myth, a story made real. The human smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth like a predator, but somehow it did not seem threatening. It seemed kind. "My name is Commander," she said. "Please come with us. We have medical supplies, food, and warm shelter. You are safe now." One by one, the survivors began to move. They followed Commander up through the tunnels, out of the darkness into the light. And when they reached the surface, they saw something that would stay with them forever. The sky was full of ships. Human warships hung above the colony like protective giants. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, their hulls gleaming in the pale sunlight. Smaller craft moved between them, carrying supplies down to the surface. Medical tents were already being set up. Soldiers in strange armor walked among the ruins, searching for more survivors. Fell to her knees. Tears ran down her silver face. She had believed. Against all reason, against all logic, she had believed, and she had been right. A hand touched her shoulder. She looked up and saw Commander standing over her. "You activated the beacon," the commander said. "It was not a question." "Yes," whispered. "Then you saved these people. Come with me. The Admiral wants to meet you." They traveled up to the flagship in a small shuttle, pressed her face against the window, watching the human fleet pass by. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, clean lines, perfect symmetry, technology that made conquered vessels look like children's toys. The flagship was called the Endurance Eternal. It was massive, larger than some space stations. Inside saw humans everywhere. They came in different colors and sizes, but they all moved with the same quiet confidence. They smiled at her as she passed. Some even waved. "You seem surprised," Commander said. "The stories say humans are warriors," replied. "Killers, dangerous." "We are," the commander agreed. "When we need to be, but we are many things. We are also builders, teachers, artists, friends." She paused. "The galaxy only remembers our wars. They forget everything else." They reached a large door. It opened onto a room filled with screens and maps. At the center stood a woman with dark skin and gray hair. She wore a simple uniform, no decorations, no medals. But every human in the room watched her with absolute respect. "Admiral," Commander announced. She activated the beacon." The Admiral turned. Her eyes were old, far older than her face suggested. She studied for a long moment, then nodded. "Thank you for calling us," she said. "We have been waiting a long time for that signal." "Why?" asked. The question came out before she could stop it. "Why did you leave? Why did you hide? For 12,000 years we thought you were dead. We thought you were just stories." Admiral sighed. She walked to a window and looked out at the stars. "Sit down," she said. "This will take time to explain." The Admiral began to speak. 12,000 years ago, humanity ruled 1/3 of this galaxy. We had colonies on 10,000 worlds, fleets that could darken suns, technology that younger species could not even understand. We thought we were gods. She shook her head. We were fools. What happened? We realized what we were doing to the galaxy. Everywhere we went, other species stopped developing. Why invent new technology when humans would give it to you? Why build your own ships when human ships were better? Why develop your own culture when human culture was everywhere? The Admiral turned to face. We were not conquering the galaxy with weapons. We were conquering it with kindness, and it was destroying everything we touched. Thought about this. She thought about the conquered with its 47 species, each with its own culture and technology. None of that would exist if humans had stayed. "So you left," she said. "We left. We retreated beyond the galactic rim to a region no one else could reach. We hid ourselves. We watched. We waited." The Admiral's voice grew heavy. "We let the galaxy forget us. We became legends, then myths, then nothing at all. It was the hardest thing we ever did. But you came back. We came back because you called, because you needed us." The Admiral's eyes grew dark. "And because something worse is coming, something we ran from once before." Felt a chill run through her body. "What do you mean?" Admiral pressed a button on her console. A star map appeared in the air between them. Most of it glowed with soft colors, marking the territories of the conquered and other known civilizations. But one region was different. One region was completely black. "We call them the Hollow," the Admiral said. "They are not from this galaxy. They came from somewhere else, somewhere far away. They are machines, but not like any machines you have ever seen. They do not think like us. They do not want what we want. They have only one purpose." "What purpose?" "Consumption. They consume civilizations. They take everything, knowledge, resources, people, and they use it to make more of themselves. Then they move on to the next civilization, the next galaxy." The Admiral pointed at the black region. 12,000 years ago they came here. We fought them. We lost billions of our people, and in the end we did not win. We just survived long enough for them to leave. They left. They finished with this region and moved on, but they always come back. They circle through the universe, taking everything in their path, and now they have returned to this galaxy. The Admiral met's eyes. That is why we revealed ourselves, not for the Wraith, not for politics. We came back because the Hollow are coming, and this time we cannot run. This time we have to fight. Looked at the black region on the map. It was huge. Hundreds of star systems. Billions of lives perhaps all gone, all consumed. "Can you stop them?" she asked. Admiral was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I know that we will try. Humans do not surrender. We do not give up. Even when we are afraid, even when we are dying, we keep fighting." She smiled, but there was sadness in it. "That is what makes us human. That is what the legends remember." She placed her hand on shoulder. "And now, young one, you have a choice. You can return to your people and forget what you have seen. Or you can stay with us and help us prepare for what is coming. The conquered will need someone who understands both worlds, someone who can bridge the gap between legend and reality." Thought about her life before this moment. Her small room, her boring job, her supervisors who laughed at her questions. That life seemed very far away now. "I will stay," she said. Admiral nodded. "Good. Then welcome to the Terran remnant. We have much work to do and very little time to do it." Outside the window, the human fleet hung in silent formation. Thousands of ships, carrying millions of soldiers, all preparing for a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The legends had returned, and the real battle was about to begin. 4 months had passed since the sky filled with human warships. 4 months since the galaxy learned that legends could be real, and now stood in the Grand Council chamber, watching history change forever. The same council that had laughed at High Archivist now sat in terrified silence. The same leaders who had called humans myths now begged for their help. Admiral stood before them, calm and patient, explaining the threat that was coming. "The Hollow will reach conquered space in approximately 6 months," she said. "They have already consumed 17 star systems in the outer regions. Each system they take makes them stronger. Each civilization they destroy teaches them new tactics. They learn, they adapt, they do not stop." High Chancellor leaned forward. His 6 eyes were wide with fear. "What do you want from us?" "We want nothing from you," replied. "We are offering to stand beside you, to fight with you, to share our technology and our knowledge, but you must understand something. We did not come back to rule the galaxy. We came back to save it. And if we refuse your help, then you will die." The Admiral's voice was not cruel. It was simply honest. The Hollow do not negotiate. They do not make treaties. They do not take prisoners. They erase civilizations completely as if they never existed at all. The council argued for 3 days. Some wanted to accept the human offer immediately. Others were suspicious. Why would a species hide for 12,000 years and then suddenly return? What did the humans really want? Could they be trusted? In the end, fear won. The conquered agreed to ally with the Terran remnant. Human ships would join conquered fleets. Human technology would be shared with conquered scientists. For the first time in 12,000 years, humans and aliens would fight side by side. Became the official liaison between the two civilizations. She spent her days learning about humanity, trying to understand these strange beings that the galaxy had feared for so long. She learned that humans needed to sleep for 8 hours every night, but could force themselves to stay awake for days if necessary. She learned that they ate plants and animals, sometimes cooking them with fire, sometimes eating them raw. She learned that they could survive injuries that would kill any other species, their bodies healing themselves with remarkable speed. But the things that surprised her most were not physical, they were emotional. One evening she watched a group of human soldiers sitting around a fire. They were telling jokes, laughing, punching each other in the arms. Some of them had scars from old battles. Some of them would probably die in the war that was coming. But in that moment they seemed happy, at peace. "How do you do it?" asked one of them, a young woman named Sarah. "How do you laugh when you know what is coming?" Sarah thought about this for a moment. "Because laughing is part of being alive," she said. "If we stop laughing, stop loving, stop enjoying each day, then the hollow have already won. They want to erase us. The best way to fight that is to live as fully as we can, right up until the end." "But are you not afraid?" "Of course we are afraid," Sarah smiled. "Being brave does not mean being unafraid. It means being afraid and choosing to fight anyway. Every human learns this. Fear is not weakness. Running from fear is weakness." Thought about this often in the weeks that followed. She watched humans train for battle with fierce intensity. She watched them weep at memorial services for fallen friends. She watched them write letters to loved ones they might never see again. They felt everything so deeply, fear and love and anger and joy, and they never tried to hide it. One day, she asked a human Marine named Jackson a question that had been bothering her for weeks. "In the old stories," she said, "humans are monsters, killers, destroyers, but you are not like that. You are kind. You help strangers, you make jokes. How can both things be true?" Jackson was cleaning his weapon. He did not look up as he answered. "We fight because we love," he said simply. "Every war we have ever fought was to protect something precious. Our families, our homes, our friends, our way of life." He finally looked at her. "That is what makes us dangerous. We are not fighting for territory or resources or power. We are fighting for the people we love. And there is nothing in the universe more dangerous than a human protecting someone they care about." "But you can also be cruel," said. "The stories speak of human violence, human anger." "Yes, we can be cruel. We have done terrible things in our history. We are not perfect beings." Jackson finished cleaning his weapon and set it down. "But we try to be better. Every generation we try to learn from our mistakes. We teach our children to be kinder than we were. We build societies that protect the weak instead of crushing them. We fall short again and again, but we never stop trying." He stood up and stretched. "That is the human way," he said. "We are not angels. We are not demons. We are just people trying to do right in a universe that does not care about us. And when something threatens the people we love, we become whatever we need to become to stop it." 6 months after the alliance was formed, the first battle with the Hollow began. Watched from the command center of a conquered battleship, the human fleet moved in perfect formation, thousands of ships forming a wall between the Hollow and conquered space. Behind them, the combined alien fleet waited nervously. The Hollow emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of insects, millions of machine units, each one connected to a vast intelligence, world ships the size of moons, weapon platforms that could crack planets. They did not communicate. They did not hesitate. They simply attacked. The human fleet met them head-on. For hours, the battle raged, watched in horror as ships on both sides were destroyed. Human vessels rammed into hollow formations, their crews sacrificing themselves to create openings for others. Alien ships fired everything they had, their weapons barely scratching the Hollow's defenses. And then it went wrong. The Hollow adapted. They studied the human tactics, analyzed their patterns, and changed their approach. Suddenly, moves that had worked before failed. Ships that had been winning found themselves surrounded. The human line began to break. Admiral's voice came over the communication system. "All conquered vessels fall back to secondary positions. Repeat, all conquered vessels fall back." Watched the screen in despair. The conquered fleet retreated. Behind them, the human fleet fought alone, buying time for the others to escape. She saw human ships being torn apart by hollow weapons. She saw escape pods being swallowed by machine units. She saw thousands of lives ending in seconds. When it was finally over, the Hollow retreated to absorb what they had learned. The human fleet had survived, but barely, and the conquered fleet had learned a terrible lesson. The Hollow were not mindless machines. They were learning, growing. Every battle made them stronger, smarter, more deadly. That night found Admiral alone in her quarters. The Admiral looked old, truly old, in a way had never seen before. "We cannot keep fighting like this," said quietly. "Every battle teaches them something new. Every life we lose makes them more powerful. We are not just fighting to win. We are fighting to end this before they become unstoppable." "Is that possible?" asked. Looked at her for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. "There is a weapon, something we developed during the First War 12,000 years ago. We never used it because the cost was too high, but now," she closed her eyes, "now we may have no choice." "What kind of weapon?" "One that could end this war forever, or destroy everything we are trying to save." The Admiral opened her eyes. "That is always the human way. We find solutions that work, but we pay terrible prices for them. Every victory comes with sacrifice." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "The final battle is coming. And when it does, the galaxy will learn why humans became legends in the first place." Stood beside her, watching the darkness between the stars. Somewhere out there the Hollow were waiting, learning, preparing. And somewhere in the human fleet, a weapon waited too. The war was about to end, one way or another. The threshold stretched before them like a wound in space. This was where the Hollow were gathering, where they were massing for their final push into the heart of the galaxy. Beyond this point, there would be no more retreating, no more strategic withdrawals. This battle would decide everything. Stood on the bridge of the Endurance Eternal, surrounded by human officers who knew they might not survive the day. The largest fleet ever assembled hung in formation behind them. Human dreadnoughts, conquered battleships, vessels from 47 different species, all united against a common enemy. Admiral addressed them all. 12,000 years ago," she said, her voice carrying across every ship in the fleet, "humanity ran from this fight. We hid. We let fear make us ghosts. We watched from the shadows while the galaxy forgot we existed." She paused. "Never again." On every screen and every ship, millions of beings listened. "Today, we remind the universe why they made legends about us. Today, we show the Hollow what happens when they threaten the people we love. Today, we stand together, human and alien, side by side, as one people facing one enemy." She raised her hand. "For everyone who died in the First War, for everyone who will die today, for every child who will grow up in a galaxy free from fear." Her voice hardened. "We fight." The fleet surged forward. The Hollow met them with everything they had. Millions of machine units swarmed through space like locusts. World ships fired weapons that could crack moons. The darkness between stars filled with fire and death. Watched from the command center as the battle unfolded. Human tactics were different this time. Instead of predictable patterns, they used chaos. Ships moved in seemingly random directions, changing course without warning, attacking from impossible angles. The Hollow's predictive systems struggled to adapt. "They are learning our chaos," a human officer reported. "Give them another hour and they will have new patterns." "Then we do not give them an hour," replied. "All ships Phase 2, execute." Across the battlefield, human ships began to do something had never seen before. They stopped fighting defensively. They charged directly into Hollow formations, ramming enemy vessels, creating explosions that tore holes in the machine swarm. Escape pods launched seconds before impact, carrying crew members who had volunteered to pilot the suicide runs. "Why would they do that?" whispered. A human officer beside her answered without looking away from his screen. "Because every ship that rams the enemy saves 100 others. Because humans have always been willing to die for their friends. Because we would rather burn than kneel." The tide began to turn. The Hollow's formations broke apart under the constant, unpredictable assault. Their world ships could not coordinate properly when their smaller units were being destroyed so quickly. For the first time since the war began, the machines seemed confused. Then Admiral gave the final order. Deploy the resonance bomb. A single ship broke away from the human fleet. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle, but it carried the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. 12,000 years ago, humans had built this device but never used it. The cost had been too high, the risk too great. But now there was no other choice. The small ship flew directly into the heart of the hollow swarm. Millions of machine units tried to stop it. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The ship's shields failed. Its hull began to tear apart, but it kept going. Watched on the screen as the ship reached its target, the central node that connected all hollow units to their shared intelligence. In the final second, she saw the pilot's face on the communication screen. A young human woman, no older than herself. She was smiling. "Tell them we did not run this time," the pilot said. Then she activated the bomb. The explosion was not like normal explosions. It did not create fire or debris. Instead, it created a wave of energy that spread outward at impossible speed. When it touched the hollow units, something changed. Their movements became erratic. Their coordination vanished. The hive mind that connected them was severed, each unit suddenly alone, isolated, unable to communicate with the others. The swarm became chaos. "All ships attack," commanded. "Finish them." The combined fleet descended on the confused hollow like wolves on scattered sheep. Without their shared intelligence, the machine units could not coordinate defense. They fought individually, desperately, but they were no longer an unstoppable force. They were just machines. The battle lasted another 6 hours. When it was over, the hollow were broken. Not destroyed completely, but scattered across space in fragments that would take centuries to reassemble. The threat was ended. The galaxy was saved. But the cost had been terrible. Found Admiral in the medical bay, surrounded by doctors. The Admiral had led the final assault personally, and her ship had taken heavy damage. She was dying. "We did it," whispered when she saw. Blood covered her face, but she was smiling. "We actually did it." "You saved everyone," said, tears running down her face. "The whole galaxy." "No," shook her head weakly. "We all saved everyone, human and alien fighting together. That is how it should have always been." She reached out and took his hand. Tell them we are not legends. We are just people who refused to quit, just people who loved something enough to die for it." Her eyes closed. "Tell them, that is what being human really means." Admiral died surrounded by friends, both human and alien. She was given a funeral worthy of the greatest hero the galaxy had ever known. Her body was sent into the heart of a star, the traditional human way of honoring those who fell in battle. 1 year later stood before a new galactic council. The chamber was different now. Human representatives sat alongside alien delegates. The old fear was gone, replaced by something new: respect, understanding, partnership. Gave a speech that day, words she had been preparing for months. "We thought humans were myths," she said, "because the stories seemed impossible. Beings who laughed at death, who loved so fiercely they would burn worlds to protect a single child, who sang songs in the darkness and never, ever surrendered." She looked at the human delegates. They were smiling, some with tears in their eyes. "We were wrong to think them impossible. They are not impossible, they are just human." She paused. "They feel fear like we do. They feel pain like we do. They doubt themselves, make mistakes, and fail. But when they fall, they get up again. When they lose hope, they find it again. When the universe tells them something cannot be done, they do it anyway." She thought of Admiral, of the pilot who smiled before she died, of every human who had sacrificed everything for people they had never met. "That is the lesson I learned. Not that humans are legends beyond our understanding, but that they are people just like us who simply refuse to give up. And if they can refuse to give up, then so can we. So can all of us." The chamber erupted in applause. Human and alien voices mixed together. celebrating not a victory of war but a victory of spirit. After the ceremony, walked through the memorial that had been built on the council grounds. A wall of names stretched into the distance, millions of humans and aliens who had fallen in the war. At the bottom, an inscription was carved in every known language. They stood when others knelt, they fought when others fled, they were human. Touched the wall. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, a signal from the darkness, a beacon in a forgotten bunker, a people who had hidden for 12,000 years, waiting for the moment when they would be needed again. The legends were real, but they were not myths or fairy tales. They were people, brave, flawed, stubborn, loving people who had refused to let the universe break them. And now the galaxy was not just remembering their stories, it was continuing them. Human and alien, working together, building a future where no one would ever have to hide again. Looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, on 1,000 worlds, children of every species were being told bedtime stories about humans. But now those stories were different. Now they were not warnings about dangerous creatures from a death world. They were stories about friends, about heroes, about people who came back when they were needed most. The old legends had ended. New ones were just beginning.